hola, здравствуйте, assalamu alaikum, guten tag, konnichiwa, big hello and warm welcome back to the Knitters Party podcast. My name is Megan. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Meg311yo. And today I'm really excited to be back. It's been 5 weeks since my last content-related podcast. I know I had my yarn haul a couple weeks back, and I am looking forward to doing this podcast a little bit late because I did not want to compete with all you podcasters who went to Rhinebeck, because I'm really jealous. I did not go to Rhinebeck, and I wasn't about to compete with all of their awesome stories and pictures and yarn purchases. So I just took an extra week to knit, and here I am with all the finished objects. Not 1,001 of them, unfortunately, but I do have a bunch of finished objects, 7 to be exact. I also have a couple of new purchases, even though I told myself that my yarn haul was everything. I've been traveling, knitting, doing all sorts of fun stuff. Anyway, let's get right into it. Grab your drink, grab your knitting, whatever you like. Today, instead of a beer, I'll be drinking coffee out of my grumpy mug. And I am a little bit grumpy, and that's because I filmed this entire podcast yesterday and I couldn't use any of the footage because the lighting was totally off. So I'm adjusting the contrast here a little bit, and I hope that it works out really well. We'll figure it out. Anyway, cheers to you. Welcome back if you're a returning viewer. If this is your first time, hello, welcome. I hope you enjoy the show. Cheers. I'm drinking a Hawaiian hazelnut coffee, by the way, and it is absolutely delicious. I drink my coffee black, but over the weekend I was just in Toronto with my husband for our 6-year wedding anniversary. Anyway, I was drinking a lot of Tim Hortons, and I got into the 2 cream, 2 sugar, and that's dangerous business. So I'm drinking black coffee, hoping I'd pick up a taste for it again, but we'll see. Anyway, so getting right into my finished objects, I'll start off with this lovely, beautiful thing right here, my pièce de résistance. This is my absolutely beautiful Celtic Myths shawl by Asita Krebs, and I finally finished it. And look at it, is just effortless to wear. That's not true. It took me a minute to sort of make it look all nice and everything. But this is knit with, the yarn is Knit Picks Comfy Worsted in the Celestial colorway. And it's just a really beautiful, absolutely stunning royal blue color. And I just think it is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. So I'm super excited to have it done. This is knit for my mother-in-law. The last episode that I had content related, I put a little disclaimer because I forgot to say something, you know, oh, don't look at this, you know, mother-in-law, this is for you. But she didn't look, or I'm sorry, she looked anyway, and she told me, she's like, Megan, it's beautiful. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to have it. So this one's for you, Mom. I've been wearing it because I love it. At first, I actually did not know if it was going to turn out really well, just because on the edges, you'll see it doesn't come to a point. It has sort of this squared off edge with all of the cabling next to it. And I thought that that was going to look bad or something. I don't know. But when I washed it, I blocked it out, I laid it out, and I put a million pins in this thing to try and get it as nice as I could. And I fell in love. I absolutely love it. The second I wrapped it around me, I just knew that this was a really special project. So last time I showed it to you, I was probably right about here, just in the stockinette. The body of this is all stockinette, and then just beautiful cable across the bottom. It is a pretty large shawl, but not that large actually. And the pattern allows you to adjust as, you know, to make it as wide or as narrow as you want. But I thought that there were going to be something like 20 repeats of the cable. I don't know why I saw that. It just, there's a little part in the pattern where it says, oh, if you're going to adjust, you know, adjust by 26 stitches or whatever. Anyway, so I thought there were 26 repeats. I don't know how that worked in my head. There were a lot more than 26 repeats. So this cable along the bottom took me so much longer to knit than obviously the stockinette 2 and 4. But this was awesome. This was a really fun project. It was really a learning experience for me as well. I'm used to doing cables in matters of, you know, 2, so 2 over 2 always. That's always what I've always done. And so this cable has a part where you're going 2 over 1, and then you end up with, you know, with an odd number of stitches in between the actual cable weaves. It was really cool. Anyway, this is a paid for pattern, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I love it. I also love right at the bottom, you see those little eyelets? I think it makes a nice you know, just a nice little detail when you're wearing it on your skin or on your shirt or whatever it is. This is absolutely beautiful. This is also one of those shawls that I definitely feel you can wear a million different ways. So you know how they have those, you know, oh, wear your shawl 7 different ways. This is one of them. You can definitely wear it as a shawl. You can wear it as a scarf. You can sort of just effortlessly drape it around you. Look how easy that was. This is my favorite way to wear it. I think it looks really nice. It shows off the cable and it sort of stretches everything out so that it feels bigger than it maybe otherwise would. I don't know. So a little bit about the yarn. This actually turned out really drapey and beautiful. I think it's very nice. It's loose. This is a cotton and acrylic blend. My mother-in-law might be sensitive to wool, and so I didn't want to make something out of merino just in case it you know, aggravated her skin or anything. So I'm hoping that she likes the cotton anyway. Oh, see, my lighting is perfect when I have this right here. I wonder if I could just like put this in the background. Ooh, that would be fun, wouldn't it? I'm gonna try and do that. And just like magic, it actually does affect my my color. I love it. Great, cool. Okay, so that was my first finished object. I'm gonna move right along into something that you don't see very often on my podcast, and that is something that comes in a pair. You wear them on your feet. I never knit them. I have socks, finished object. Look at that. These are my Hermione's Everyday Socks by Erica Luder. And this pattern, this is one that I actually started way back in March when I was living in London. And I was just looking through my stash one day, looking at all my yarn, just looking around, and you know how you do sometimes, just squishing everything. And I found these, and they were knit toe up. They were knit from bottom and up to right here. And I was like, those are practically done. All I need to do is add a cuff, you know, add a black cuff to match, and these are done. And so that's what I did. I did not do a single round of the repeat or of the pattern actual repeat. I just added a little cuff at the top and they were done. And so they're absolutely stunning. And I can't believe I didn't finish these when all they needed was, you know, they could have taken another 6 inches up the leg, of course, if I wanted to do that. But I guess I didn't want to. And instead, I just decided to finish them. So this yarn, the blue right here is Knit Picks Hawthorn in the Goose Hollow colorway. So it's a really nice, it's blowing out a little bit. It's got like mostly purples with a little bit of blue. It looks more blue on screen. There we go. But it's a really nice sort of tonal, variegated yarn. And if you have not made these socks, it's a free pattern. It's totally easy. And it's just a really basic, I think a 4-row repeat on the pattern for the cuff and the top of the foot. It's really easy and I recommend it if you are maybe new to trying socks or you've tried vanilla socks but you want something a little more involved. This is a good one to have. Funny story about these socks. I finished them and I was really excited to, you know, try them out and wear them. So you'll see this one has a little stain already. That's because one day in October, my husband and I, it was a beautiful day. It was just us two in the house. And so we decided to play beer pong outside. And because I had just finished my hand knit socks, I'm like, I'm going to wear my socks outside. So I stepped in all the leaves and that is a little bit of sap that got onto the foot. So these are now my beer pong socks. No, I won't be wearing them for beer pong, obviously, but I just love them. And I have a finished pair of socks. Like what? How is that even a thing that I have? I don't ever wear socks. I'm sorry, I don't ever knit socks. I wear them all the time, but so I'm really proud of myself for that. And guess what, guys? I have another pair of socks. What? I don't ever make socks, and look at me, 2 in a row right here. This pattern is something that I actually test knit this for a designer called Ruth Brash. This is her almost aran sock pattern. And you'll see it's got a beautiful cable across the bottom, as well as these smaller cables down the side. And these are actually as bright yellow as they're showing up. This is like neon yellow. The yarn is Yarn Carnival High Wire 3-ply. This is one that I had picked up in Austin, Texas last year. And the colorway is Endless Summer. And I found this pattern because I was on Instagram one day, and I don't even know how I found Ruth Brash. I don't know if I was following her before. She's just a knitwear designer, and she has all these amazing patterns out on Ravelry. And she had this picture of her wearing the sock, and she said, calling all testers, like I need testers. And I was fresh off my Hermione's Everyday Socks. I was like yarn high on socks apparently. And I was like, I need these socks in my life. Like I want them so bad. I'm going to take them. I'm going to make them. And so I contacted her. She put me in her Ravelry group, and I was able to start making these socks right away. It was awesome. And so a couple of cool design elements about these socks. First of all, they are so customizable. So the pattern is written for, it is a cuff down sock pattern, but you can use, you can have either this heel flap and gusset that I've done, or there's an afterthought heel option. You can totally customize, obviously, how long you want the repeats on the top of the foot for, before you go into your, the body of your foot. I wanted just little shorty ankle socks. And it was really awesome. So the heel is just a, I have partridge heel. So that's not particularly unique, but what is unique is the heel turn here. And this is a square heel turn rather than the V-shaped ones that I've seen a lot of. And this heel turn, I'm sorry, actually fits me really, really well. So I don't know how people think that your heel is shaped like a V, because my heel is definitely more square shaped. And so my heel just tucks right into the sock, and it fits better than any other heel flap and gusset that I've ever made before. And so I'm definitely going to be using this sort of square heel for my other patterns as well whenever I knit socks. So in fashion with my other sock, I already have a stain. I don't even know where this one came from. It's just like, I didn't do beer pong in these. I don't think I stepped outside in them or anything, but I don't know. Anyway, what a beautiful sock pattern. It's going to be released very shortly on Ravelry, if it's not already by the time of this podcast. But you should maybe check it out. Also, check out Ruth's other projects and other patterns. This is my first time knitting for her and testing for her, but I saw some of her other patterns, and they're really beautiful and super cool. And so I'm hoping that, I can do a couple more of her projects. I know that I have another sock pattern of hers in my queue on Ravelry, and maybe I think I mentioned that in my yarn haul. She has a sock pattern that she's specifically written for variegated, not color change, not self-striping, but just variegated yarns, and it looks absolutely beautiful. They're called her cobble socks, I want to say. I like the pattern. It's a really basic pattern, but it looks like you'll be able to really show off those little color variegations in your yarn. So I don't know, I'm gonna give that a try, but these were so much fun to knit with. Okay, one other funny thing. So these are knit on size 2 needles, right? So standard socks, whatever. I do not have a size 2 cable needle. So I was like sitting there and I'm trying to do these cables, and specifically these little cables are like 1 stitch, 1 stitch cables. And I'm like, okay, knitting without a cable needle makes me totally nervous. So I don't want to do that. And so I'm like, what on earth am I going to do? Because I don't have a teeny tiny cable needle, and I don't want to use a larger cable needle and stretch out all my stitches. So instead I used a darning needle. Have you ever tried that? I don't know. I thought like I invented the wheel or something. I was like, wow, you guys, look how cool I am, like using a darning needle to do cables with this. But it actually worked out really perfectly. I used an extra wide cable needle. An extra wide darning needle, just something that would hold the stitches so that I didn't have to worry about it slipping out of either end of the stitch. But it worked so perfectly, you guys. Like, it was just the right thickness. It didn't stretch out my stitches, but it was easier than having live stitches just hanging out knitting without a cable needle. And especially for this, braid down the middle, you actually need to use a cable needle for that. I don't know about you, but I would never have like 3 stitches hanging off my knitting while I knit on the back or in the front, whatever. Anyway, so if you've never tried that, pro tip, try using your darning needles as a cable needle for socks. Hey, you can take that one for free. Yeah. So the next thing I knit, and this is something for, again, the little baby that's coming into my life soon. So I decided, why do I even have these little introductions? I don't even know what to say for them. Like, oh, okay, I knit this thing for a baby. That's all. I knit a hat. This is the Garter Ear Flap Hat by Pearl Soho, and this is a super fun little knit. The yarn is Serdar DK cotton, and I knit it to match the little Mio romper that I had finished, a long time ago now, over a month ago. But I had mentioned that I thought I wasn't going to have enough of this silver yarn to make a whole romper. Of course, I had tons left over, so I used this teal to supplement it. This was chosen by the mother of the child, so I did not choose this weird ass color scheme. She likes it apparently, but I felt like the teal was a little strange, and so I needed something to match. And so I made this little garter ear flap hat. This is a fun pattern. It is a combination of short rows for the little ear flaps and just a bunch of garter stitch, which is perfect. I mean, it was really fun and easy, and you know, it's a baby hat, so it's not like there's too many stitches on there. The one thing that I thought was a little bit weird about this pattern is that, sorry, there's like fuzz flying everywhere and it's killing me. My nose is like going crazy. But the thing about this pattern is that for the baby size, it says to knit 4 inches of, you know, plain garter stitch before you do these decreases. And so I'm knitting along and I'm like, this baby hat is gonna be friggin' huge if I try to knit 4 inches of just garter from the rolled edge right here. 4 inches would probably be about there before you start your decreases. And then I did my decreases a little differently as well. The decreases are supposed to be like every 3rd row you decrease, you know, a double decrease along these lines. Fine. I did that for one and I was like, this is going to be way too tall. So it's going to be like a pointy gnome hat. It's going to be way too tall on this little baby hat. And so I was like, screw it. So I did about 2.5 inches, like 2 inches from the rolled edge up to my first decreases. And then I decreased, I think, every 3rd row instead of every 4th row for these decreases. It looks just the same. Like if you've seen the pattern on Ravelry, you'll see it looks very similar. Theirs might be a tiny bit, you know, pointier, like, you know, less steep decrease at the top. But I think this is beautiful. I think it's so cute. And I especially love just the 4 little random tassels at the top of this hat. So I actually think this is going to be a good size fit. Babies' heads are gigantic anyway, and they can grow into it. But this is a dream to work with. I love this Serdar DK cotton. It's really soft. It is definitely like a mercerized Pima cotton. I don't know. I think it's super cute, super soft. And considering that this is a seed stitch, I think garter stitch actually goes pretty well with that. So I hope that they actually will use this as a little set. I'm thinking about making booties, but as we've seen, I'm not very good at making booties. But if I did, I'll probably make them with the leftover teal yarn that I have as well. So this is a fun little project. This is my finished object for this week, but it goes along with this little guy. So, hooray! Hooray for finished objects. The next thing that I made was also for the little baby. And you guys know me and my obsession with amigurumi. Well, I think I am going to start knitting all the amigurumis for this little baby nugget. And so I started off with this little guy. This pattern is loosely based on the pattern Octopus for a Preemie by Gosia, G-O-S-I-A. Not sure how to pronounce that. I did modify it a little bit, but not enough to really talk about. The yarn here is the King Cole Smarty DK. I picked this up in London as well, and this is their colorway Neapolitan. Just like fun little flecks of yellow, blue, purple, green, just like very, very light specks on a beautiful white base. And I absolutely love this yarn. The mother of the baby picked it out, and so that's that. And the cool thing about this pattern is that these little tentacles, the arms of this octopus, apparently they've done studies. I read this on the pattern website, so I'm not sure. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, so go check it out. But they say that these arms sort of remind a baby of like the umbilical cord of being in the womb, and so it allows them to feel safety, you know, something familiar when they're outside of the womb. And so this is originally a charity pattern for premature babies, and you're able to knit them and then donate them to your local hospital, and they'll give it to a premature baby who needs it. But I'm hoping, obviously, that this baby coming into my life is not premature. I'm hoping that they're going to be born healthy, everything, but it's still a cute little octopus. I'll probably make a couple cooler ones, because this one, it sort of seems like a hot air balloon. Like, I like this pattern for babies. I think it's fine, but I don't think it's like, it's certainly not anatomically correct, you know? And so I think that if I were to make a few more amigurumis for this baby, I think I'm going to have to go with something a little more realistic looking than this guy. And so the yarn for the eyes is just left over in the mouth as well. That's just acrylic yarn. Oh, this is 100% acrylic too, but this is like, it feels really nice and soft and really nice. So I think it's going to be fun. Totally machine washable, super squishy, and it was an easy, fun knit. This took like 2 days. And even then it was like probably 5.5 to 6 hours of total work. These little things take like 15 minutes a piece, but then it's really just weaving in all the ends and trying to make it so that they're woven in securely, but that you can't feel any knots. I mean, you know how it is. So yeah, octopus for a preemie. Ah, he's so happy to be like rolling around and stuff. Okay, the next thing that I'm going right on through all of my awesome finished objects here. This next one is really, really special to me. So I am going to give it the introduction it deserves. Cheers to that. I'm no longer grumpy, by the way. Coffee plus yarn and podcasting makes me really happy. So cheers to that. So this pattern, these are the Fisherman mitts by Meg Roke. Look at that incredible, cool pattern. These are fingerless mitts knit in this very special yarn. This is Midknit Cravings on their Superwash Sport base. I want to say it's a 75% merino, 25% nylon, sport weight yarn. And this is the hand dyed colorway that was made just for me by my gal pal Jaden up in Saskatchewan. I love my Canadian dyers. I love my Canadian people. I'm not Canadian, I'm American. I want to be Canadian so bad too. My husband's Canadian. Anyway, I absolutely love this yarn. It just has these beautiful flecks of purple, a little bit, it looks yellow, but it's really more like a lime green. So purple, like magenta, lime green. And this speckled yarn is incredible. So this is a paid for pattern on Ravelry, so I'm not going to go into too many details, but I have been obsessed with a fisherman's rib lately. And that's the part that I don't think it's a problem if I talk about, because it's pretty standard. A fisherman's rib is something like on the cuff, and it's basically, it's not a broken rib. The pattern is a 2-row repeat, and it's like knit 1 row all around, knit 1 purl 1, knit 1 purl 1 all around. Knit 1 round, just knitting, knit 1 round, knit 1 purl 1. And so you end up with these little, almost like mock rib stitches. And they're really nice. They're super like squishy, but they don't go in like a normal rib would. So I would not use this for socks. I wouldn't use this for anything that you need it to sort of pull in for the cuff. But for these little wristers, I mean, my wrist isn't super small, so I don't need something that's going to be tight, tight, tight against it. And also it goes right into that cable pattern so beautifully at the bottom. I've seen a lot of cable patterns where they start after a cuff and they don't look sort of seamless and effortless, but I feel like this pattern, it really does. I've always been one to knock fingerless mitts because I thought they were almost like sort of useless, right? Like, oh, well, they don't really keep your hands warm. Oh, they don't really keep your fingers warm. I guess you could use your phone, which is cool, but you know, it just seems like almost like a waste, you know? I'm not sure. But I decided to try these after thinking about what can I actually wear in a warm weather climate, because I've lived in San Diego. I'm about to move to Egypt eventually. More on that, I guess, later, maybe. Moving to Egypt very soon, though. And I want to be able to wear my hand knits. It makes me feel really special, really good. And so I figured that fingerless mitts are actually a pretty good option, you know? So I absolutely love it. And this yarn is incredible. This pattern is incredible. And I might make a second pair. They were so fast. I knit them 2 at a time. The thing that usually I don't love about mittens is like knitting the thumb on teeny tiny DPNs. And this one, it basically, as soon as you take the stitches off for the thumb, you cast off. There is no extra knitting up the thumb. I actually think that's perfect because I don't know, I like having my opposable thumb free. Makes me, I don't know, feel good. So that's that. Fingerless mitts. Love them. You should give them a try. If you've never made fingerless mitts, do give them a try. They're super fast. This took exactly 50 grams of yarn. So if you have like a skein with maybe 103, 104 grams, maybe they give you a bit extra, you could actually make 2 pairs of these. And even then, I made the cuff an extra ½ inch longer than the pattern called for, just because I like a long cuff on my mittens. So that's that. Okay, this last finished object that I have is a super special one. This one is for, well, it has switched owners in the 4 days that it has been in existence, but I'll just go right into it. This is a starfish. And I originally knit this for my dad because they have lived in Florida. They love sort of the tropical lifestyle down there, and they love all the flora and fauna of Florida. And so my dad was like, Megan, we're retiring soon. You know, we're going to be driving across the country, seeing all 50 states. I want a little something to put on my dashboard that reminds me of Florida and also reminds me of family. And he said, would you knit me a starfish? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And he wanted something that was sort of low, so it's not going to be in his field of vision and his on his dashboard or anything. And so I decided to knit him a starfish. Well, he asked for a starfish. And so that's what I did. And initially I looked on Ravelry and I found a pattern. It's called Starfish by Ginny Sturdy. This is loosely based on that. Her pattern I did not love. It is a paid for pattern, but what it does is it basically has you knitting each individual fifth of the starfish in sort of diamond shaped blocks, and then you're supposed to weave them all together to form the front, weave them all together to form the back, and then seam up the sides while you're stuffing it. So this is so much seaming involved. So you're seaming 5 pieces together on the front, 5 pieces together on the back, and across all of these arms. That was going to be like a ton of seaming and weaving in ends. And trying to weave in ends on something like an amigurumi can be difficult. If you're stuffing it, there's nowhere to put it. So you sort of just hope that you weave it through the stuffing well enough. But it's not an easy task. So anyway, I took her design elements because she had this little knit ridge going up the front. She had these little dots, you know, that I think add a lot of dimension. She had those in there, and I basically reworked the pattern completely to make it almost seamless. I thought about maybe like writing it down and sort of releasing a pattern, but because it looks so similar, the finished product looks almost identical to the one that she released, I feel like I copied her design elements, which I thought were awesome. So I'm obviously not going to be releasing this pattern, even though it's written completely differently. This one is practically seamless. I started in the middle and I had 5 stitches, and I increased, and then I did each individual one of these separately where I cast on the same number of stitches that I had on the front. I cast on that number for the back, and then you just knit a tube going this way. You can stuff all of those, pick up your stitches on the back, and just decrease down into the center. I thought it was pretty fine. It was okay. But anyway, so I made this for my dad, and then I posted it on Facebook, and I said, oh, cute, I made a starfish, whatever. And so my mother-in-law, she is the keeper of my penguins, my babies, all of my amigurumi. I've got like 12 penguins that I knit for myself, in addition to owls and dragons and turtles and dinosaurs and elephants. I just love my amigurumis. Look at episode 2. I have all the amigurumis. She is keeping all of those in her home, keeping them safe and sound. Well, she sent me a ransom notice that 2 of my penguins are holding my favorite penguin hostage, and they said, tell your dad that the starfish belongs to me, or else the penguins are gonna pay. And she sent me this ransom note. She wants the starfish. The penguins apparently want the starfish. And so I showed my dad. I'll put a picture right here. But basically, it's my 2 penguins holding my 3rd penguin for ransom, hugged, gagged and tied. And they're demanding that I deliver the starfish or else, And so I have to make another starfish because my mother-in-law wants one so bad. And so I might actually give her this one because this is totally her colors. In fact, the yarn that I used is Karen Simply Soft. This is the leftover yarn that I made her. I made a Celtic cabled neck warmer for her out of this yarn, and so this was just leftover yarn. This is totally her color palette. She hand-picked this. So I might give this one to my mother-in-law, and then I will make a new one for my dad, because he even was sort of looking at it and he's like, it's not the same color as a starfish. It's okay. No, he loved it, but he was sort of complaining that it's not actually like a starfish. So I might give this one to my mother-in-law, and my dad's gonna get a new one. So that's that. That is all of my finished objects. I can't believe I have 7 of them, but when you're knitting like little things like baby hats and amigurumis, they go by so fast. It's absolutely insane. So I'm gonna take a break, refill my coffee, and come on back. So for my next trick, I wanted to talk about just a few purchases I've made for myself lately. I was not intending to buy any yarn. I was intending to be good and nice and stick with the yarn haul that I have, you know, 50 plus skeins of yarn that are coming to Egypt with me. But alas, I was traveling, and when you're traveling, you know, you have to buy yarn. I'm a yarn tourist. I'm a beer tourist, and I'm a yarn tourist. So every city I go to, I try to find the local brewery and a local yarn store, and maybe a restaurant if I'm interested, but like beer and yarn are really my tourism things. So I have been to a couple different places as of late, starting off with Florida. I went down to Florida to visit my parents and my grandparents. They've got a condo in Englewood, Florida. And so I went to her little local yarn store in Englewood, which is outside of Tampa. That's like the airport I flew into at least. But I'm gonna go through this bag. It's not all full completely, but there's some goodies in here. But the first place I went to was Florida, and I had forgotten how interesting it is to see a local yarn store in a warm weather state. And so you walk in and you're surrounded by cotton and nylon and acrylic yarns, and their wool selection is very limited. Fine with me. I'm moving to Egypt for research. My husband's doing PhD research. We're going to be going to Cairo soon. We're waiting on security clearance still from the Egyptian government. We're also waiting on clearance for the Dar al-Wathaiq. It's like a research permissions, basically. Like we need him to be able to go into these research facilities and be able to actually do things there and get in. So anyway, we're going to Egypt. We're going to be moving to Egypt, and so I don't want to be knitting with all this wool anyway. And so I just picked up a couple cool skeins of cotton. So the first one I'm going to show off is this one right here. Did you guys know that Cascade makes a sparkle cotton yarn? Like, are you joking? So I picked up 2 skeins of this. This is called Cascade Sun Seeker. They don't have colorways, they don't have names for their colorways at least, but this is color number 31. It's like a really sweet, just like a light green. I'm trying to get it to show up properly. Anyway, it's so sparkly. And this yarn is, let's look at the fiber content. 47% cotton, 48% acrylic, and 5% metallic. And so this is a really cool yarn, super sparkly, and it's cotton and acrylic. And the reason I picked this up is because they had a cool market bag on display that was knit with 2 skeins of this yarn, and it looked so awesome. Also, look at this price, you guys. Can you even see it? No? Okay, well, upside down you can almost see it. This yarn costs $7.75 a skein for Cascade. I'm used to paying $11 to $12 for their Cascade Ultra Pima. So I'm not sure that maybe because this has a little acrylic fiber content, maybe it's a little bit cheaper, but I thought that was a steal for like Cascade yarn, $7.75. So I'm gonna have a $15 market bag. What a cheap project that is. How awesome. So I'm really excited to get going on this. I will be crocheting this up in Egypt. And if I don't love it, this is a gift I would totally like give to somebody. A fun market bag, knit in cotton and acrylic. There's nothing offensive. There's nothing like allergen for that. And so I gave it a shot. So I have 2 skeins right here. Metallic yarn. Hooray, it's so sparkly. Yay. Okay, so the next thing I bought is also for my dad. He's gonna be a lucky guy these days. He's getting a lot of knits for him. He asked me when I was knitting these socks in Florida, the almost aran socks. And he looks at them and he's like, wow, that's a really cool sock. Like, you know, and he was like, would you ever make me some socks? And I was like, yeah, of course. And he's like, I want golf socks. So my dad, the golfer, he's that golfer that wears day glow, neon colors, like bright greens, pinks, oranges, yellows, whatever. And so when I was at this store, I'm looking around for yarn and I was like, I do not want to knit my dad wool socks for him to go golfing in. And so instead I picked up another cotton yarn. This is one I'd never seen before. It's from Ella Ray, Phoenix DK. There we go. Phoenix DK, and this is 100% Egyptian cotton. And so I feel like if there's any cotton to get, it's Egyptian cotton, of course. And look at that colorway. It's showing up as like a carrot orange on camera, but this is like a mac and cheese, like this is like an orange. This is bright orange. And it's absolutely super exciting and cool. 100% cotton. It's a DK weight, so they're going to be really fast to knit. My dad has pretty big feet, so like I don't need a 72 stitch man's extra large sock or whatever. So instead I'm going to be, you know, just knitting a DK weight sock. I hope he actually likes it and can wear it. This yarn is not the softest, I'm not going to lie. Because it's 100% cotton, this feels really rough. And even then, like I'm just looking at one of the plies here, it's not very tightly wound, so that's going to definitely probably split when I knit it, but that's okay. I'm making a pair of socks. I'm not excited, and I'm not worried about it splitting too much to be a problem. But I'm gonna, because this has basically no give, it's not wool, there's no nylon, I think I'm gonna knit like a basic ribbed sock, so just like maybe 3x1 or 2x1 rib, not sure, just something to give it some negative ease, but enough room so that when he, you know, is golfing or whatever, I want it to be able to sort of flex with his foot. Look at me, I'm like a sock designer. I just wanted to flex with his foot. I don't know, I'm just gonna do a nice rib on it and see if that works. So these are my Florida purchases. Overall, Florida was really nice. I got a chance to swim in the ocean in October, which is super cool. I got a chance to kayak in Lemon Bay, which is just like a nice little, almost like a little marina area, but they have manatees, they've got dolphins, tons of flying fish that like literally just fly out and just flop into the water next to you. Pelicans, oh my God, the flora and fauna of Florida is no joke. Like I'm sort of used to a sanitized version of the beach living in California. So in California, you might get seagulls, that's it. But in Florida, you are in nature. Like that is their natural habitat and you are a guest. Whereas in California, it seems so sanitized, so different. But Florida, you've got gators and pelicans and seashells and seaweed and fish and all sorts of weird, crazy stuff. I was not exactly a fan. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not the biggest outdoorsy person, but whatever. It was a cool trip either way, and I got to buy some dirt cheap yarn, and that's that. So the next place I went to was, as I mentioned, in this past weekend, my husband and I had our 6-year wedding anniversary, and we decided to sort of get out of town a little bit. We've been going a little stir crazy, living with mom and dad in Michigan, and we've been married for 6 years. We've been on our own for 6 years, and to try and just live here and wait for government clearance in Egypt so that he can, you know, so that we can go and continue to resume our lives and everything. It's been a little tough. So we decided to get out of town for our anniversary weekend, and we went to Canada, our favorite place in the world, obviously. So we spent a day in Windsor before doing a couple days in Toronto to visit friends. And Windsor is sort of where we fell in love. It's like, there's not much to do there. It's a really small little city. But we went to a little Ukrainian restaurant run out of this Baba's home. She just had like pierogies and cabbage rolls and, you know, all that good stuff. Anyway, after lunch, I was like, Paul, I need to go to this yarn store. So he very patiently waited for me in the car while I went shopping at the store called Pretty Skeins. Pretty Skeins in Windsor. It's a cool, very unique store because you walk in and there's bare shelves, there's bare walls, there's tons of open space, and there's not that much yarn. But the yarn they do have is really beautiful and quality. And they had something that I'm not used to seeing, and that was a sale rack. And so I went to the sale rack and I picked up a couple of really cool skeins. Let me unwrap one for you. And it's another really shiny yarn. So this yarn is Serdar Soft Spun Chunky. It's called Luxury Soft Fashion Yarn. They also do not label their colorways. Let me make sure about that. Yeah, they don't have colorways. But this is a really weird mix of fibers. Like, I've never really seen this before either. It's 53% nylon, 24% wool, and 23% acrylic. And so I'm not sure if it's the nylon or the acrylic giving it this shine, but it is a super shiny yarn. And it's sort of a chunky weight, but it really could double as like an aran weight. I don't think it's that chunky, but this was on sale. Normally it's like $9.95 a skein or something, so I paid $5 for a ball of this. So of course I needed to pick up a bunch of them because there's only, it's a 50 gram, 137 yards, so 125 meters approximately. Not a big skein, so you need a couple of them to make a project. And she was so sweet. She threw in a free pattern for me for the sample that was knit up in the store. They had a really lovely cowl, and it had these giant V's going down it. They look like knit stitches, but I could tell that it was crocheted. And so she asked me, she goes, oh, like, do you crochet as well as knit? And I was like, yeah, I do, but I'm not nearly as good. So she threw in this pattern, and it looks so easy. It looks like a 4-row repeat, and it's a really beautiful cowl, a chunky cowl. And so I think I'm gonna have to do that. Oh, and there's her store information, Pretty Skeins in Windsor, Ontario. And it was really cool. So I picked up 4 skeins of this Serdar Soft Spun Chunky. And then I was only at $20, and like my limit for any single yarn store purchase is like right around $50. So I was like, okay, I might be able to afford one more exciting thing. And so I went over to her wall where she had all the indie dyed yarns, and I found my soul sister in yarn. Look at this incredible skein. And I've unwound this and rewound it a million times, so it's not as pretty as it was. This is Artful Belle, which is an 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon. And this colorway is Orchid. And it just has the most beautiful hot pinks, bright oranges, bright green. It looks like a fresh flower. And not only that, like, you look inside here and it is saturated with color. There is color where they didn't even wind the skein. And that's how you know that that's a quality dyer. Because I said in my yarn haul video, I purchased a skein from some Canadian dyer. Anyway, the outside of it was so beautiful, saturated color, and then you look at the inside and it's like no color at all, no dye. And so I'm not sure if that was a design element or not, but I'm really happy to see that this one is totally saturated. I've also never seen this brand before, this Artful Belle. So I was really excited to give it a try. These will be socks. I know I don't love normally knitting socks, but these just feel like they have to be fun, exciting socks. So I'm gonna give it a try. I hope they work out really well. Hooray! So that was my Windsor, Ontario purchase. And right before we went out to Canada, I was looking on Facebook, or I'm sorry, I was looking at Ravelry to see if there were any good yarn stores near me here in Michigan, here in Clarkston, Michigan. And so I know that we have one place in Clarkston called A Basket Full of Yarn, but the owner is sort of grumpy. She was the one that offended me all those years ago, and she doesn't carry the best yarns, and there's nothing hand dyed, there's no indie dyers, and it's just not an ideal yarn store. Not to mention the fact that it's open from like 11 to 3, Monday, Wednesday, Friday sort of thing. It has like the weirdest hours. I don't know how she stays in business. Anyway, that's not my favorite yarn store. So I was looking around and I pop up on Ravelry and I go to yarn stores and I see that there's a new one. And it's called the Knitter's Nest. And I realized I've never been there. Oh, it's because it hasn't quite opened yet. They're having their grand opening ribbon cutting ceremony on Monday, the day you get back from Canada. And so I went out to their Facebook page and I marked that, yes, I'm going to your grand opening yarn cutting event, or I'm sorry, ribbon cutting event, yarn cutting. And so we drive back from Toronto. It's like a 4.5-hour drive. And I literally drop Paul off at the door and I'm like, okay, bye, see ya. I'm gonna go to the yarn store. And so I get there and they're having like a party. They're having a party at this yarn store. There's wine, there's a huge tower with like cheese and crackers and grapes and all this stuff. Not to mention, of course, you're surrounded by beautiful yarn. And when I say beautiful yarn, I'm talking like Malabrigo and Sirdar. And they have wool that I've never seen before. They have Michigan hand-dyed yarns, which I've never seen. They've got really rustic wools. They've got really beautiful blends of alpacas and silks. They have everything. Not only that, they had a good selection of everything across the price range. So they have yarn that is $5 a ball, and they have yarn that's like $35 a skein. And it depends what you're looking for. Hand-dyed, you know, Malabrigo. They also had Sweet Georgia. They've got all these super cool yarns. And so I was like absolutely overwhelmed, but I spoke with the owners. They were all really excited to meet me. And I, you know, most of the people that were there were friends of the owners, or like their husbands, their children. And so there were a lot of people who knew the owners. I think I was one of the few people that showed up who was just like off the street, you know, hey, I heard about this. I wanted to come and say hi. Anyway, they were the sweetest women. So Levon and Muriel owned this store, and they specifically wanted to offer a better variety of yarn than the other local Clarkston store. And that's because everyone knows that that other store is sort of, it's just a very different sort of store. Anyway, so these ladies have the best yarn. So I didn't buy anything that day because I was totally overwhelmed, but I walked in the next day, which was yesterday for me, and I wanted to go shopping. And so I picked up a couple skeins, and I was actually surprised at how nice the prices were. So first what I'm going to show you is this guy here. This is Sirdar Snuggly Spots DK weight. This is 55% acrylic and 55% nylon and 45% acrylic. And it's just like a cute little polka dotted yarn with little blue and like grayish teal speckles. So this is like a navy blue and like tiny teal and little silver speckles. And this is so cute. And it's obviously going to be for that little baby. I think I'm going to make a cardigan out of this. Oh, it's washing out completely. I think I'm going to make a cardigan out of this. Just something easy and fun. So maybe a onesie, maybe a cardigan, I'm not sure, but it is so soft. And considering it's like 55% nylon, I didn't know what it would feel like, but I don't know how even we make yarn out of synthetic fibers, because this is so soft. It could be alpaca, it could be wool, it could be anything except cotton. It doesn't feel like cotton. It feels much better than cotton, but it's acrylic and it's absolutely incredible. And this was $5.75 for a DK weight, like a 50-gram skein of yarn. And I have been using a lot of Sirdar because in the UK, they're a British company. In the UK, Sirdar is widely available, not so much in the US, but I found some and I love it. And they have a million Sirdar options at this new place, the Knitter's Nest in Clarkston. And then of course I went to the Malabrigo wall because I was a little scared of some of the hand-dyed yarns from Michigan. They were really woolly and thick and just not what I was looking for, I guess. And so I picked up instead the most beautiful dark blue. This is like a beautiful royal blue Malabrigo. This is Malabrigo Dos Tierras, which is 50% merino, 50% baby alpaca. And this is their Matisse blue colorway. Nope, wrong way. There we go. Matisse blue colorway. And this is 100 grams, 210 yards of yarn. And look at that color. I've been knitting a lot of purples and greens and oranges for myself. That's sort of my comfort zone. But I love blue. If I had to pick a favorite color, I would have a hard time. But I don't know what it is about this magical blue yarn. And the reason I call it a magical blue yarn is because so many years ago when I was just getting more interested in knitting, I went with my husband up to Canada and I picked up just a single ball of blue acrylic yarn, and it was the right color blue. It was so deeply saturated. It was so just a beautiful color, and it was my magical blue yarn. And I used every inch of that yarn. I made amigurumis. I think I made a pair of mittens that are now lost. I made everything out of this incredible magic blue yarn. It was just such a saturated blue color. So when I saw this hanging up at the store, It's blowing out a little bit. This is actually a very deep blue. So anyway, I'm gonna make a shawl out of this. I have to. I think it's absolutely stunning. This blue is really popular in the Middle East. If you've ever seen an evil eye or a khamsa or anything like that has the Middle Eastern glass, that blue glass, this is the same color as that blue glass. It's a beautiful, royal, rich, saturated blue. And I think this is going to make an incredibly fun knit for me. So I'm really excited to do this. And the price tag, $19 for Malabrigo Dos Tierras, which is more expensive than their straight merino, but because this is 50% baby alpaca, I think it's a little bit more expensive. But even then, $19 for a skein of yarn is not a bad price. I would easily have paid $24, $25 for this in San Diego. And so to find it for $19 here is insane. So that's it. That's it. I have 1,001 new things. I've got like 15 new skeins of yarn, not quite, maybe 10 new skeins of yarn. I have 7 new finished objects, and I'm really excited because I just keep on knitting. That's all I can do to keep my sanity. So yeah, I think that's all I have for you. Thank you for joining me. I was like, what am I doing here? Thank you for joining me. If you did like this video, this goes for this, like my own podcast and all of your other favorite videos on YouTube. Please give it a thumbs up. That helps other people find our videos so that we can maybe get new viewers or, you know, sort of spread the love a little bit. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're interested, and do that with all of your favorite fiber related content podcasters, what have you, because the thumbs up really goes a long way on YouTube for some reason. And it's just cool to find new viewers and to find new podcasts. And so when I'm looking for new podcasts, I know that the ones that I find happen to have more, you know, subscribers, thumbs up, likes, whatever. So feel free to leave me a comment, whatever. Definitely join us on our Ravelry group for the Knitters Party podcast. I also am starting a new little series where I do some yarn reviews. I just put out one yesterday for the Knit Picks comfy worsted yarn that I made this beautiful Celtic Myths shawl out of. But check those out. I hope to do a couple more of those because they're really fun and short, easy little videos. And otherwise, I just look forward to seeing you next time. Maybe I'll be in Egypt, maybe I'll be in Michigan, who knows where else I'll be. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Ma'asalama, adios, bye-bye.